Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Anne-Sophie and today I'm very excited to be chatting to you about my summer knitting plans. So we're joined today by my cat, Stella, who is just gonna be chilling in the background while I sip my little iced coffee and grab some yarns to show you and tell you what I'm planning on doing with them. I hope you have a nice little drink for yourself as well and can be knitting along to something fun or exciting while I'm yapping. Well, while I'm yapping and she's napping. That was a terrible joke, sorry. I completely forgot to give a little disclaimer about my wrist at the beginning of the video. So if you're wondering why I'm suddenly sitting in a different place, oh, Leela's there. Yeah, so if you're confused, something went wrong with my camera and we're here now. But so a lot of things have been going wrong in my life recently. I spilled piping hot coffee on my wrist and I now have a nasty second-degree burn that needs to be covered and gently cared for. So that's this. Before we get into any of my plans, I would like to take a minute to thank everyone who has subscribed to my channel because this week we reached 1,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel, which is mind-boggling and extremely exciting. I'm very grateful for the support. I'm very glad that you seem to be enjoying my content and that so many of you seem to be enjoying my content, especially. For that reason, I would like to host a little giveaway, but I'll introduce that at the end of the video, so stick around if you'd like to find out what I'm going to be giving away and how to take part in the giveaway. Okay, so let's get into it. I have quite a lot of plans, just like in my spring knitting plans video, because what I tend to do is I buy yarn, often with a specific idea in mind, but just as often not with a specific idea in mind, just like a fingering weight camisole or a fingering weight tee or a DK weight blouse or something like that. So generally what I do then is when a new season comes around, I go and check out my stash. I see, okay, what's in here? What can I make with these things? And then I go and browse my Ravelry favorites or just generally camisoles on Ravelry or tees on Ravelry this season. And I see what the different options are for the different yarns that I have, and then I figure out which of those options excite me and I'd like to make. And then I tend to end up with quite a long list of things I could be making in this season. And during the season, I just, whenever I have crazy cast on energy or I've cast off something and cast on something new, I just see and figure out what sparks the most joy at that very moment, and then I just end up knitting that. So I'm going to go through all of my options for the season today, but realistically, I won't be knitting all of these things, especially since I still have a few whips from spring and last summer that I'm taking with me into the summer, which you will be seeing in my next podcast. Because I won't cover them here because it'll be just a bit too much. I'll start by saying that when I analyzed what I had in my yarn cabinet, I noticed that I only really had fingering weight yarns that I could use, and just hardly any that were 100% plant-based. And it doesn't get too hot here in the summer, but when it does get really hot, I tend to like to knit with plant-based yarns and like to wear plant-based yarns. So I want to knit, I feel like, at least one plant-based garment every summer. So I noticed I only had fingering weights and no plant-based yarns, so I figured, you know what, I'm gonna look up some garments that I could make that are more of like a DK or a worsted weight and that call for or call for possibly plant-based yarns, and I'll knit those as like little palette cleansers so that my wrists don't get completely messed up by knitting on like 3 millimeter needles all summer. But wait, before I get into that, I forgot to talk about what I'm wearing today. Today I'm wearing my favorite camisole, which is my square neck camisole, which is a pattern by Helena Boba, which she goes by Garno Slikt on Instagram and Ravelry too, I believe. She writes brilliant patterns. She's a Norwegian designer, I believe. This is just, yeah, a square neck camisole, as the pattern name states. It's a 2x2 ribbed camisole, and it's finished with these beautiful double knitted edges. It has these lovely decreases on the side, and I knit it in a fingering weight yarn as it calls for, which was cotton merino by Knitting for Olive in the shade soft blue. Now, you may notice a little bit of pilling on this garment. That's not because of the yarn, that's because of me. I love this yarn, it's amazing. Not necessarily for ribbing, because I do feel like the ribbing's a tad not neat or irregular, but for a stockinette, I love this yarn, I think, because it does feel amazing and it's nice to knit with and it's very comfortable. Just don't be like me and accidentally put it in both the washer and the dryer, because then you're going to end up with pilling. It didn't really shrink a lot, but it did end up like felting a tiny bit and pilling. But so, yeah, that's probably because there's 70% cotton and only 30% merino in this yarn. So, yeah, do with that information what you will. Now, the first garments I'd like to discuss are the garments for which I bought new yarns that were not already in my stash. And the first one of those, um, the yarn is actually on its way here, so I can't show it to you yet, but I bought camarose løvetand organic linen, which is 100% linen yarn from Camarose in the color fennikel, which is fennel, I believe. It's like sage green almost. It's not too warm, so I don't feel like it's super duper comparable to Knitting for Olive's fennel seed. I feel like the color, going off from pictures at this point, sits somewhere in between Knitting for Olive's dusty artichoke and fennel seed, which I think is just scrumptious. It's a DK weight yarn, and I've never worked with 100% linen, or I think even knitted a DK weight summer garment before, so I'm very excited for that. And this is a yarn that the top sole by mochiknits calls for. I've been obsessed with this top since like it came out. It's this adorable little vest top with these two little bows tying it together in the front because it's open. It has a V-neck. It seems to be knitted in one piece, top down, and it has like these garter ridges on the edge of the. It's a sleeveless top, so on the edge of the armhole, but it does seem to be knitted simultaneously to the stockinette body, which looks just amazing and like a fun and quick summer project. It's a crop top. For the size I'm knitting, I only need 4 balls of yarn, which, yeah, I don't know, sounds really exciting and it looks so cute. Now, a bit more pattern specifics. So the gauge the pattern calls for is 26 stitches by 40 rows, and it calls for 3.5 millimeter needles. The chest measurements the pattern can fit range from 88 to 108 centimeters or 34 to 42 inches. That means it only has a few sizes, which range from XS to XL, which is far from size inclusive, and also one of the reasons that I did not knit this vest last summer. So last summer, I messaged this designer on Ravelry and I asked them, like, hey, I noticed that this pattern is not at all size inclusive. Do you reckon you would grade for more sizes and upgrade the pattern a little bit? And she responded quite politely and said, yeah, I will, but I'm first translating most of the patterns. And I'll be making my sizes more inclusive after I've concluded translating all the patterns. Now, it does seem like she has concluded translating, but she hasn't upgraded the sizing for her older patterns. However, she is, well, the patterns that she's publishing now are more size inclusive, and she published a design, I think last season or a few months ago, called the Claire vest, which is a very similar vest, and it goes up to a 3XL. Now, the only differences are that it has buttons instead of bow ties, but that's easily, well, adjustable or modifiable. And it's a fingering weight vest, but I feel like it looks very similar. So if you would like to knit this top sole, but there's no size that would fit your bust measurements, I could refer you to the top Claire. And maybe if other people message this designer, she might end up making her older patterns more size inclusive too, which would be lovely because I think she makes amazing patterns. I love anything she puts out, and I feel like I might be making many more of hers in the future, but I'd prefer to do so without having the sour taste of the older patterns not being size inclusive. Yeah, but that's all I'm gonna say about that. The fennikel camarose løvetand linen yarn comes with 150 meters per 50 grams. And yeah, I don't think there's much more to say about it. I'm just very excited. I think this is one of the things that I will 100% be knitting this summer. I think the knits that I bought yarns for, like the heavier weights, are for sure going to be finished by the end of the summer, and then I'll have my pick from my fingering weight options from Stash. Now, the next garment I bought yarn for is also a garment I've been obsessed with since last summer, and that is My Favorite Things Knitwear's blouse number 1. I think this is just a scrumptious design. It calls for 2 light fingering weights held double. I think the pattern calls for knitting for olive pure silk held double, and on Ravelry it states that that gives you an Aran weight, which I find curious because in my brain 2 fingering weights are a DK, so especially if it's 2 light fingering weights, you end up with a DK. But so she says that you should end up with an Aran weight yarn holding them double and with 19 stitches and 27 rows for your gauge on 5mm needles. Now I've swatched for this. I may have already cast it on at this point because I've been trying to film this video a few times and it doesn't, well, it keeps not working out. I seem to be cursed or something lately. But so I ended up having to go down to 4mm needles, and I posted about this on my Instagram story because I found it so curious. Because usually with My Favorite Things Knitwear, I know I'm a loose knitter, but I don't usually have that many issues with our patterns. But a lot of people ended up reaching out and reacting to my stories saying that they had the exact same issue. So yeah, I feel like maybe something's off with the gauge, or I don't know. Mine was just way too loose. I'd show you the gauge swatch, but my cat decided it was her favorite little toy for the moment, so she's completely massacred that gauge swatch. But I forgive her if she likes it. Whatever. It's not like I'm going to use it again. But so the yarn I'm knitting it in, instead of the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk, is the sandnesgarn tynn, which is it basically translates to thin linen, in the colorway Hortensia, which is this gorgeous blue. It's like a dusty, soft blue. I feel like the color name suits it perfectly because it looks just exactly like blue hortensia flowers do. This color is just inspiring me greatly. It's a very soft yarn, like incredibly soft, and also like dry at the touch at the same time, which I feel like most really good summer yarns are. It looks kind of matte and shiny at the same time, which I absolutely adore. Look at that. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's very thinly plied, it seems to me. I don't know if you can see that, but I really enjoy it. It's not too splitty, but I feel like if I would be knitting this up on metal needles, it might be splitty, so that's interesting to know. The composition of this yarn is 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen, and per 50 grams you get 220 meters. I bought 6 balls of this for my blouse number 1, and I feel like it's probably going to be enough. Bit more specs for the pattern. So it fits bust sizes ranging from 80 to 140 centimeters, which is the same as 28 to 49 inches. And the sizes range from an XS to an XL. Garment calls for 10 centimeters of negative ease, and it comes with this gorgeous boat neck and set-in sleeve look. So the shoulders are constructed quite similarly to the Frankie that I knitted this spring. So you start with rapid increases on the shoulders, and then you end up going into some contiguous knitting to shape the set-in sleeve. So you start by increasing for the sleeves after you've increased for the body only, and then at the bottom of the, yeah, nearing your underarm, you start going into a bit more of a raglan, increasing on both sides. And then the sleeves are long and have a bit of a flared vibe. And the garment has, well, in line with recent trends within knitting, no specific finishings, but if you are not necessarily a fan of that, the pattern does come with instructions for I-cord edges. I was scared that I was going to have to add I-cord edges to my garment afterwards if I noticed that it was curling up too much, because stockinette tends to curl up. But I feel like so far with the yarn I'm using, the yarn doesn't really seem to be curling up a lot, so I have high hopes for that. I think it's gonna look absolutely amazing, and so far I've tried it on already, and it fits really well and really nicely. So I feel like I might in the future try and knit another one, but with the regular line, which is I believe the DK weight version of the sandnesgarn linen yarn line. I think they even have a tikkina, which is a thicker one. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a random thought blurb, but I think that would be a cool thing to test out and to compare. Now, oh yeah, the pure silk that it calls for by Knitting for Olive is indeed a light fingering weight, and I feel like this is more of a regular fingering weight because the pure silk has 250 meters per 50 grams, and this has 220 meters per 50 grams. So yeah, we're gonna get into the fingering weight things. First, I bought this a thicker fingering weight sock yarn in New York City. It is the Malabrigo, as you can see, sock in the color pearl, which is a variegated dusty purple lilac-y gray, and I feel like the name pearl just perfectly covers it. I bought this thinking I would make socks with it, but then found out that it is a 100% superwash merino yarn and not sock yarn, so it doesn't include nylon. Yeah, so I thought, you know what, let's figure out what to do with it since it's 100 grams and how many meters? 440 yards, so 402 meters. I thought maybe I could make a summer top, and then on Ravelry, I looked up the yarn, and I saw someone who made tiffknits 9 p.m. tank in exactly this color, and it looked gorgeous. It's a stockinette tank top with a bit of a square neck look as well, and I feel double knitted edges. And the sizing is so intriguing because it's entirely, well, made to measure. So I am very, very excited to try out that pattern and try out this yarn and see what I end up with. So there's several recommended yarns for that pattern, which I notice is often the case for fingering weight patterns. And yeah, it's a beautiful stockinette knit. I'm quite certain I'm going to be casting that one on this summer just because I'm incredibly, incredibly curious to see what the made to measure sizing is going to work like. And yeah, keep you posted on that. Next, oh, I have been obsessed recently with the ILANA camisole. I've seen quite some people who have knitted it or are knitting it. I think Madison from True Summer Knits is currently knitting one in Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino, which just looks so, so, so pretty. And I have these two balls of Knitting for Olive Merino that I got in my local yarn store with my friend in January. This is the color Dusty Aqua, which is like a beautiful dusty greenish turquoise, like yeah, a greenish aquamarine. I don't know. Yeah, dusty aqua is just a perfect description. Of course, it is 250 meters per 50 grams because it's Knitting for Olive. And yeah, it's super soft and squishy. And I think for the ILANA camisole, this would be a perfect yarn because Knitting for Olive's merino makes your stitches like nice and defined. It tends to knit up really evenly. And for a V-neck camisole with these tiny 2-stitch cables, I think this will just work perfectly and be a nice knitting experience as well. Not sure whether I want to knit this up with wood or metal needles just yet. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. I just can't seem to figure that out. So if anyone has experience knitting tiny like 2x2 cables with this yarn on either metal or wood 3mm needles, let me know about your experience, and maybe that can help me figure out what to knit this on. And otherwise, I'm just going to have to make 2 swatches and see what looks and feels best. Now, this isn't exactly a fingering weight yarn, but I have 2 balls of this DMC Natura Just Cotton, which is a sport weight 100% cotton yarn I got on holiday in France, mostly because I thought the color was really pretty and the image on the thingy looks just, I don't know, I thought it was really, really pretty. This is a gray colorway. It's a very pearly gray, and it has like some blue greenish tones in there. And when I was looking at this, I figured, hey, this is a sport weight. Maybe I could squeeze out like a Stella top from this, which is a square neck top knit bottom up. Everything else I'm mentioning today is knit top down because that's my favorite, but this pattern is knit bottom up, and in this ribbing that makes it look like kind of a pointelle fabric, which I think is really pretty. Future Fiber has knitted this before, and she has noted that the straps have different stitch patterns on them, and I've seen many people on Ravelry actually knit the straps in stockinette, which with the I-cord edging I think looks really, really pretty, so I might do that. Some pattern specs. So it calls for a sport weight. It's made by Svetlana Volkova, and it calls for a gauge with 28 stitches and 34 rows, and it is made up on 2.75mm needles. It fits chest measurements between 57 and 149 centimeters, or 22.5 to 28.5 inches. Which fits bust sizes ranging from 2XS to 4XL. The yarn it calls for is drop saffron, which measures 160 meters per 50 grams, and this one measures 155 meters per 50 grams, which is a perfect match. Yeah, I'm excited for that one. I think it could be a really quick knit, so if I feel like having a little palette cleanser, I'm gonna gladly knit that up. I do find it strange that it's knit on less than 3mm needles with a sport weight yarn, so I might size up, but I'll have to make like a little test gauge swatch before I figure that out. Now, one last summer top that I want to knit. Well, it's actually one yarn and two things I'd like to knit. So I've already knit up a little swatch on 2.75mm needles with this yarn, and look how beautiful this looks. I don't know if anyone can guess, but this is the Knitting for Olive cotton merino in the color purple elephant. Yeah, this is my favorite color of cotton merino. It's this lavenderish gray, and I love cotton merino and just the way it knits up and the way it feels when you're knitting it up. People have described it as like buttery or lotiony, which I for sure agree with. Knitting for Olive came out with a lot of new colors this summer of their cotton merino yarn, which is, as I said earlier, a 70% cotton and 30% merino yarn. But for some reason, they discontinued this one. So I panic bought like 3 balls of this in, I believe, March or April. And I wanted to make a camisole number 9 or a cropped cumulus tee with that. And then a bit later on, when I was buying my tynn, I noticed that that yarn store still had some of these in stock as well, so I bought 2 more. So I have 3 skeins in one dye lot and 2 in another, and I feel like I might be able to squeeze out both a cami number 9 by My Favorite Things Knitwear and a Cumulus Tee by Petite Knit out of those 2, because I've knitted the camisole number 9 by My Favorite Things Knitwear before in Knitting for Olive merino with 2 balls of yarn. That ended up being like really cropped, but not too terribly cropped, so I feel like I might only need just a tiny bit of a third ball. So if I knit that one first, and then I go into like with the 2 balls, and then I go into a cumulus tee with everything I have left over, I might be able to squeeze out a cropped cumulus tee. And it's cotton merino, so it stretches quite a bit. Yeah, if I knit like a size smaller than I than would be recommended by Petite Knit for my bust size, I think that would work out really well. Yeah, maybe I'm delusional, maybe I'm brilliant, but I'm gonna try and squeeze out 2 summer garments out of these 3 balls. I'm not sure whether I'm gonna be doing that this summer necessarily. I'll probably, if I do so, only be able to start on the cami number 9, but yeah, it's exciting. I'm gonna cover some specs on both patterns here for you as well. The Petite Knit Cumulus Tee has been knitted by so many people. It fits bust measurements from 80 to 130 centimeters or 31 to 51 inches, so classic Petite Knit sizing. It ranges from an extra small to a 3XL. The gauge is 28 stitches by 40 rows in a fingering weight on 3mm needles. It's a raglan tee with 1 raglan stitch. Has a V-neck, but she brought out an O-neck version recently as well. It sports these gorgeous I-cord edges and relatively long fitted sleeves with the gorgeous I-cord edge on the bottom of the sleeve as well. Yeah, I've knitted a cumulus blouse. I wear it all the time. It's a fun knit, it's a quick knit. I know a lot of people complain about the cumulus tee V-neck, that there's a lot of purling going on, but as an English style knitter, I don't feel like purling bothers me as much. And also, I've been knitting a Melidas, I don't know, dress, which is an open dress because it closes with buttons on one side, and that's so much purling on 3mm needles because it's back and forth and stockinette the whole time. So I feel like knitting that cumulus tee flat for a little bit won't hurt me anymore because I have that monster lying around, like monster of a project. Yeah, and then the other top that I'd like to knit with that yarn is My Favorite Things Knitwear's camisole number 9. I knitted this last year. Also knit up with a fingering weight on a 3mm gauge, 3mm needle with a 30 stitch gauge and 38 rows. It fits bust sizes ranging from 80 to 140 centimeters or 31 to 55 inches. So that's an XS to a 4XL sizing. It calls for 12 to 15 centimeters of negative ease. And it's just a basic crew neck, wide shoulder strapped camisole. But the brilliant thing about it is the edges, which are knit up in on 2 millimeter needles in a stockinette stitch, and you pick up from the wrong side so that you can fold them over and then stitch down the bind off to have it look really neat and polished and almost store bought. The process is tedious, and I hated my life while doing it for my other cami number 9, which I knit in Knitting for Olive Merino and Dusty Moose. But the end result is just so pretty that it is 100% worth it. And the bottom hem is folded. That's it for summer garments. I have also been knitfluenced, one could say, by Amy from Knitwear, who has recently gotten into crochet. I'm not the best at crochet, but I feel like in summer it's just the perfect time to learn something new and to like dip my toes into the crochet pattern world. My best friend crochets and she makes the most amazing, prettiest things. So I thought, you know what, let's start with a low risk little home project because Knitwear or Amy from Knitwear knit this Astrid pillow, crocheted an Astrid pillow, which is a granny square pillow. So you knit all of these granny squares, you arrange them into a square, you crochet them together with a beautiful, generally white edge, and then you fold the corners in around a pillow and then stitch that together. It's absolutely beautiful. It's like flower granny squares. Amy knit it with Sorella's, I think, winter tonals, and that's the kind of yarn that the pattern calls for as well. So it calls for these fingering weight winter tonals, so mini skein sets of like 10 mini skeins of 20 grams each by Sorella in fingering yarn, and you hold those double on. Oh, it doesn't, I forgot to note down what size crochet hook you're supposed to use. I'll put that on somewhere there. And then the white yarn that is used to crochet everything together and make the beautiful edges is a worsted weight yarn. So I got a basic worsted weight yarn. It hasn't arrived yet. It's in the same order as the linen yarn for my top sole. Okay, I'm so sorry. My camera cut out again. So I was saying I bought this worsted weight undyed yarn, which is Lankava Sopiva dyeable wool. It comes with 230 meters per 100 grams, so it's a worsted weight, and it cost me €6.40, which is just a steal. It's 100% non-superwash wool, and the colors I decided to use are also a steal. So I've been playing with the idea of crocheting this pillow for a while, and you know, I found the hand knit yarn for a home item a bit like spency. Yeah, so I thought, you know what, let's just push that idea to the side for a little bit and wait until I have the budget to spend money on fancy yarn for home decor. Knits, because like 10 mini skeins of 20 grams is like a lot. But while I was buying the linen yarn for my top sole, I came across these little shade packs by Holstgarn on the local yarn store website that I was browsing. And they had like these packs of 5 different little balls. So 5 different shades and 5 10-gram balls of Holstgarn Super Soft yarn, which is a 100% wool and a fingering weight. And one of these packs cost like less than €9. So I got 2 of those shade packs. I thought the purple one and the bluish green one looked really, really pretty together. But there were also like more blue ones. There was a pink one. If you go and check out the Holstgarn website where they also sell these, there were even more different colored shade packs. But so I got two of the purple one and two of the bluish green one. And yeah, it's just going to be such a relatively budget friendly, fun crochet project to be making in the summer. Like I was thinking when I'm on holiday, I'm going on holiday with my family in France and we're going to be sitting outside by the pool. It's going to be so hot. So I'm going to not want to be sitting there with like a garment on my lap. So I'm just thinking if I'm crocheting granny squares, that's going to be just perfect. I know the wool might be too warm in my hands, but that's something I'll think about later. But so the colors included in the shade packs, I got the O2 shade pack, which is the purple one, and it includes the colors Prussian, Divine, Thistledown, Hyacinth, and Princess. And the O8 color bag is the bluish greenish one, which includes the colors Cloudberry, Marlin, Robin's Egg, Topaz, and Chiffon. You get 114 meters per 20 grams of yarn, so per two little balls of each color, and I think that should be perfectly enough. Now I checked out Amy from Knit's Ravelry project page for her pillow, and she mentioned that the pillow, when you fold it double, you end up having some colors that match. So you have 10 colors to ensure that every single granny square you crochet has a different color combination, which is just absolutely beautiful. But so she mentioned that there's two outer corner ones that are going to end up meeting, and then two, she pointed out two on a different side, but I think it's actually these two that meet. But so knowing this, I went a bit crazy and I drew out a little map of what it's going to look like with my colors. I started by assigning them A, B, C, D, E, yeah, just A up to J letters, and then going from there because the pattern comes with a little chart that tells you which little granny square should have which color combination. And so I went from there and I drew this, and then I made a little analysis. So if you fold them, you end up having like these two on the outer corner of your pillow, which have the same outer color. These two end up touching, and then these two end up touching. So I decided like these little red lines are also like problem areas I noted, but I didn't find like easy ways to fix those. So what I did is I decided, you know what would happen if I switch up these, because this is pretty dark, these two next to each other. So I was like, okay, what if I switch up these, because then there's one really dark one on one side of the pillow and one really dark one on the other side. And if I switch up these, the problem of these two touching will be fixed, and the problem of these two touching will be fixed at the same time. And then if I switch up these two, the problem of the two corners having the same color will be fixed as well. And then if this keeps giving a little balance issue, that won't matter as much because the rest of the pillow will be balanced. So I switched them up and then it ended up looking like this. And I thought it was really pretty. Then I thought, you know what? There's some colors that end up appearing as like the color of the outer color of the square twice, and some that end up appearing thrice. So I thought, you know what? What if I make sure that the colors I like the most appear the most? So I redistributed the letters and colors like this. And then I ended up with this little look, which I think actually looks a lot cuter, but I'm gonna wait until the yarns arrive. Okay, so I really do seem to be a tiny bit cursed. I switched up positions to finish off my video here for a second. Um, yeah, so I was just saying that I'm going to be uploading my little analysis to my Ravelry notes, so you can check those out over there. And then last but not least, I'd like to introduce my little giveaway. I'm just so grateful for the support I've been met with. I never thought uploading my silly little chatting videos about like my knitting to YouTube would have me end up with so many sweet people following my content, commenting, and contacting me on Instagram to give like their sweetest opinions. And yeah, I'm just feeling so fuzzy and warm inside just thinking about it all. It's been such a blessing, this channel, and I didn't expect it to be. So I think I'm gonna be hosting a little giveaway. And I was thinking, since I'm discussing summer knits today, I'd like to offer one of my subscribers a knitted summer camisole. So what you can win is a camisole quantity knitting for olive merino or cotton merino in a color of your choice. So what you have to do to participate is actually just make sure you're subscribed to my channel, and then let me know in the comments what yarn you would like to use, merino or cotton merino, and which pattern you would like to knit with it, and then maybe even already let me know which color you would like to use, because I'm very curious. I mean, you can comment whatever, but if you want to already let me know what you would like to make, that would be really fun. But so any comment is an entry, and then in my next video, I'll announce the commenter that has won. So I won't be contacting anyone. I think that's the best way to work around possible bots and scammers. So what I'll be doing is I'll be announcing the commenter that won the giveaway in my next video, and then that person can contact me either on Instagram or in my email, and that'll be that. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm really curious to hear what you guys would like to be knitting, and I hope many of you will participate. Very excited about my first giveaway. I hope you guys are excited too. And just once again, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you soon, hopefully in my next video. Bye bye.